This is the news on top of the hour.
Live from our studio in Georgetown.
Kaieteur Radio, 99.1 FM.
Time check for you, 12 hours 1. My name is Amrita Koshal and it is now time for your main newscast in detail. Government to dominate all fund committees, President and Minister to make all appointments, and no place made for media or transparency groups. The amendments to the legislation governing the Natural Resource Fund, which were tabled on Thursday in the National Assembly by Finance Minister Dr. Ashni Singh, proposed that there be two key committees and a board of directors to preside over the management of the nation's oil money. Importantly, all of the members on these committees, as well as the board, will be appointed by the President or his minister responsible for natural resources. As part of the governance structure for the NRF, the government proposes to establish a board of directors which shall comprise of not less than 3 and not more than 5 persons who shall be appointed by the President and one of whom shall be appointed chairperson by the President. Importantly, there is no place for media and transparency groups which were catered for in the original legislation. The amended legislation is expected to be debated and passed before year end. Minister given power to waive oil companies' compliance with targets in local content bill. In less than 2 years of being in office, the PPPC government, specifically its Minister of Natural Resources, Vikram Bharat, was able to table the Local Content Bill 2021 yesterday in the National Assembly, which features several provisions that seek to ensure Guyanese have an equal participatory chance as well as an advantage in the oil and gas sector. The bill proposes the creation of a secretariat that would be responsible for a local content register which would have approved companies and citizens to be used by all companies. It also provides 40 categories of work as opposed to the previous 153 in the draft schedule of targets. Those 40 categories in the bill contain various levels of local content to be achieved by oil companies. Of significance is the fact that while companies are expected to meet the requirements lest they be slapped with a $50 million penalty, the bill reposes in the minister the power to waive an oil company's need for compliance with the minimum local content targets to be achieved. And we now tell you that CGX drilling in Quarantine Block taking longer than expected. Costs for Kaieteur 1 exploration well up to $125 million. The Kaieteur 1 exploration well being spud in the Quarantine oil block offshore Guyana by CGX Energy Inc. and Frontier Energy Corporation is some 90% complete, but according to the operators, the well is already taking longer than expected. As such, the cost for the well has since been revised upwards to be approximately $115 million to $125 million. The joint venture partners in the report did say it was pleased to report that despite the delays, the drilling operations have recorded only a single lost time injury since August, and COVID-19 protocols have resulted in no disruptions to operations and no positive cases detected after arrival on the drilling unit. Article 13 joins call for Yellowtail EIA to be quashed. A civil society group that calls itself Article 13 has joined forces with a group of environmentalists who recently wrote to the Environmental Assessment Board to request that ExxonMobil's fourth project, the Yellowtail Development Environmental Impact Assessment, be quashed on the ground that it lacks pertinent information. Article 13 joins calls for the EPA to restart the EIA process from the very beginning by providing full transparency in the selection of consultants and to fully address the questions raised by stakeholders during the process, the group outlined. Moreover, the group said that due to the nature of the impacts the Yellowtail development is likely to have, the consultations process should be extended to regional stakeholders as required by international law. And we now tell you that a new PNCR leader to be announced by Sunday. With the election process slated to take place on Saturday, a new leader of the PNCR is likely to be announced by Sunday, according to Vincent Alexander, who will be presiding over the process as the CEO. Alexander, who also represents the opposition at GCOM as a commissioner, yesterday held a news conference where it was announced that the stage has been set for the election to take place on Saturday. The three nominees vying for the post of leadership, Joseph Harmon, Aubrey Norton, and Dr. Richard Van West Charles, said that they are all confident that the process will be free and fair with the guidance of Mr. Alexander. There are some 13 polling stations across Guyana that have been set up in addition to the virtual station in North America. Time check for you, 12 hours 7. We will return with more news for you shortly after the break.
This is GHK Lal inviting you to join me weekdays from Monday to Friday on the National Outlook for commentary on a range of issues. Immediately after the 12 noon and 7 p.m. newscasts on Kaieteur Radio at 99.1 FM and 99.5 FM. Looking forward to you sharing in the conversation.
Diana, join me on the Glenn Lal Show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7:20 p.m. and a rebroadcast at 11 a.m. The Glenn Lal Show only on Kaieteur Radio, 99.1 and 99.5 FM.
My name is Amrita Koshal, and we now return with your main newscast in detail. Chinese company begins removal of manganese from around farmer's house. Resident seeks compensation. The Guyana Manganese Inc., a 100% owned Chinese company operating in Matthews Ridge and Port Kaituma, has reportedly begun removing tons of manganese that it has been storing around a farmer's home, which he said has destroyed his livelihood. The move comes after Kaieteur on Sunday detailed the resident's accusation against the company. The farmer is now seeking compensation for the damage he has suffered as a result of the company's actions. He noted too that as the pile is reduced from in front of his house, there is a huge hole that is being left. Daniels said he is unsure if the company will refill it when they are finished. Apart from this concern, Daniels pointed out that it will take a while for the earth to become fertile again and is now seeking compensation from the company for the severe damage it has caused. Government brings new law to harvest human organs. The government is preparing to promulgate laws to regulate and manage the harvesting of human organs for transplant and other purposes, and for the setting up of an agency in keeping with the proposed legislation. If passed, the bill, which would then become an act of law, will then make provisions for the donation and removal of human organs, tissues, cells, and biofluids for transplantation and blood for transfusion. This is in order to provide for their use for regenerative medicine and therapeutic purposes, for medical education, and for scientific research purposes. If instituted, the Human Organ and Tissue Transplant Bill 2021 will seek to establish a national organization for human organ, tissue, cell, and biofluid donation and transplantation. And now time for a COVID-19 update. An unvaccinated 84-year-old man from Region 1 who tested positive for COVID-19 has died. taking Guyana's COVID-19 death toll to 1,026. 44 new cases were recorded, taking the total number of confirmed cases to 38,728. Out of this number, 20,463 persons are women, while 18,265 are men. 11 patients are admitted into the ICU, 44 persons in institutional isolation, 685 in home isolation, and 2 in institutional quarantine. To date, a total of 36,962 persons have recovered from the virus. We now turn our attention to page 7 of the Kaieteur News, which is dedicated to being blunt. When anti-corruption mechanisms are taken away, the table is set for corruption. Costly leadership corruption, dirty crony corruption, ugly oil corruption that robs Guyana and enrich them. How is it that we are still hearing that we have a government that is all for the poor, small, and left behind? What a group of scoundrels! This is transparency and accountability, the low-life Guyanese way. Time check for you, 12 hours 12. My name is Amrita Koshal, and thank you for joining us for your main newscast in detail right here on Kaieteur Radio.
Want value for your advertising dollar? Then place your ads on Kaieteur Radio's newscasts. Streamed live on 6 different mediums, reaching hundreds of thousands. Advertise today and watch your dollar grow.